We had really, I think, shook the foundations of the industry with AC1 when we introduced, gorgeous looking game with these open world cities, seamless, no loading, and we've done pretty much what we can do with the last generation. Right, we've taken both consoles to pretty much their breaking limit.
So the initial project goal for ACU, and the name spoils it a little bit, it was to create the first fully and next-gen Assassin's Creed by blurring the lines between like single-player, multiplayer, co-op, and the purely online element of more social games.
So narrative works when you're motivating the player on a very linear story, but when you create a rich open world with all these different activities, it needs to be more. We wanted to create a city that not only is super detailed, large and beautiful, but we wanted to have depth to that city. We wanted it to be full of characters, full of NPCs, full of activities, and full of rewards. And we wanted to let the player loose in that universe and really let them explore and find that stuff on their own.
I love being able to create brand new experiences that leverage the new hardware, and so doing that on Assassin's Creed 1 was really exciting because we didn't even have dev kits really, and we not only were creating a new IP for this new hardware that we didn't really know or understand yet, we were also building a brand new engine, which ended up being an engine that's used throughout Ubisoft on a bunch of games. And our focus was really, what can we do on this hardware to change the gameplay experience for players? What can we do that's never been done before?
AC was built as a single-player experience, most and foremost. So what we had to do is to make sure that, because we're building a sandbox and an open-world game, we needed to make sure to onlineize all of our different features, and we have hundreds of them.
When you're on a mission, we tend to control a lot. This is the opposite philosophy of what we did with Unity. The idea was to create a large, living, breathing, systemic city, let you manipulate that city, and then embrace that sandbox nature, even in missions.
We've reimagined all three main pillars. First one being navigation. So parkour will give the players more abilities than before. Control over going up or going down, and precisely selecting where players want to go. We've reimagined the combat pillar altogether as well. I guess the fight system is a little bit harder than before, and that's also done on purpose to support the third pillar, which is stealth. So altogether, these three pillars, they come together and they form the core gameplay loop of our game.
It was the great time to do the same types of bets that we did on AC1 for a new generation change. So we looked at all of our workflow and we made sure that we could iterate as fast as possible. So we were able to focus on multiplayer afterwards, and on top of that, obviously, we were able to do a big push on graphics to get a totally new experience.
But we really wanted to focus on something that would take us back to the core of Assassin's Creed, so going back to a large, sprawling urban center. So we asked ourselves, if we were to go back to that route, what would be the perfect setting to showcase next-generation hardware? Well, Paris is the most visited city in the world. It's literally, teeming with monuments. You can't turn a street corner without running into some sort of landmark. And then the period of French Revolution was a period of really of upheaval with, hundreds of thousands of people taking the streets. So we're like, well, the crowd, social stealth, is one of the core pillars of the brand. The large, sprawling urban areas is another core pillar of the brand. So why not bring that all together and create a game set in that, unique setting? So this is sort of how it converged.
So you've got all the landmarks and these landmarks are incredibly huge. Like, they're close to one-to-one scale. So it really feels like you're in Paris. If
the city has literally tens of thousands of buildings, and if you can go into one in every 4 buildings, every building is a potential story. Every building is a potential reward. And you really start getting a sense that the world is no longer a movie set. It feels like an actual world. The other thing we did is when you say French Revolution, well, there's the word revolution, that's more than a dozen people screaming, right? So you need to have large crowds. So we're up to about, I think, 5,000 NPCs on screen right now. And those NPCs, I'm not talking about like just people, like random animations. These are interactive. So if you for example, you do something that will startle them, like shoot a gun in the air and they're right next to you, they will bail, they will run away. So having 5,000 characters on screen just running away is a feat unto itself, but it's something that we've been working on for a very long time.
So suddenly we're in a big open world and a huge city. So the idea is to create opportunities for people to come together and have fun things to do in co-op. We're supporting 4-player co-op, and we have tons of content. There's single-player content, there's co-op content, and also players can just explore the city together and experience Paris together, which is really exciting.
Our goal was to unify what we were doing separately, which was multiplayer and our strong single-player experience into one single game. That's why we needed to build the right team and really take our time to do that. We had a studio in Annecy, we had a studio in Singapore, a studio in Quebec City as well. This year around, we're still working with these major studios. We've added Toronto to our list of partners this year.
So we knew that Assassin's Creed Unity was looking for partners. They were in pre-production at the time, and basically Vince came over with a couple of other people and said, hey, this is where we think you guys can help us.
Our role on AC Unity was bringing that knowledge of creating good co-op maps and co-op gameplay and applying that to the Assassin's Creed universe.
In the past, we've worked on co-op, but it was within a much smaller scope in terms of the size of the world, something that we call like broad linear level design, where you do have opportunities to branch off and do different things, but within a very confined space.
We really wanted to steer away from that. So what we think is, if you make the world challenging enough, if you make the opportunities be easier or more logical to perform by multiple players, if you then give those players complementary skills, people will naturally play co-op.
So you have to really keep that in mind and make sure that you design for every possible approach and for every possible play style. Some players might be more action-oriented. You need to make sure that the fights on the ground are good and that the difficulty is balanced appropriately to encourage co-op.
Back in, I think around October, I started talking to Vince about how, Toronto, since we're working on co-op and we know that they would probably need a co-op demo for E3, I said, hey, Toronto wants to get involved.
Doing demos is always taxing, but as I said, it's part of the process. We have to do it. We want to do it.
The way game development is done on this project is Montreal's in charge of all of the technology, all of the tools, all of the features, or most of the features. And specifically for the demo, we're kind of building the top parts of the layers of the content. So we're building, the city, the levels, the mission, everything that kind of sits on top of the foundation of the technology and the features. So we have to work together.
Ultimately, it's a good win for the team, and once we have it, we have a cool benchmark. And then we can say, remember the E3 demo or the other demo? Well, that's the kind of quality we need to hit for the rest of the game.
What we talked about with the team was E3 is going to be a great opportunity for us to take something to final, take something to polish, and be able to know what that process is and understand how to work together and get there.
For our E3 demo, we wanted something that would be very impactful in a short period of time. We're going to be up there on stage for 5 minutes, and we want people to understand the conflict, to feel the energy, and to understand the gameplay progression as well.
So Alex challenged us, to tell the story of the French Revolution, the macro story of the peasant and the noble battle, framed up within this mission. We were going to set up the conflict between the classes, that really defines the French Revolution.
In the French Revolution, today's extremists were tomorrow's moderates, and the next day they were dead. And this is what happened throughout the whole thing, right? So this lent itself really well to that sort of who is right, what is freedom, what is control, right? And that sort of shifts.
So the idea was to really tell the story of what it's like to be a noble, thrust into the hands of insanely violent and angry peasants, we're going to have to do that first person. And you know, AC is not a first-person game, so it's really a jolting experience.
So we decided very early on to go with a very classic conflict from the French Revolution, which was the people versus nobility. And we set the map, the mission, around the bread riots that broke out early in the French Revolution.
So you're going to see streets that are full of chaos and under pressure, and that really represents the population that we're wading through and that we're climbing over. What the player's going to experience is they're going to see the difference between the social classes in terms of outside it's chaos, there's barricades everywhere, things are upheaved. You go inside, and all of a sudden, visually, everything is very organized, very formatted.
So the mission takes place with peasants breaking into a palace. The peasants are starving. Inside the palace, the corrupt marquis is having a party. He's feasting, and there's this inequality, and you can really understand that as a player, and that's what we built the whole demo around.
Take care of this, or I will use your head as a piss pot.
So the nice thing is, even though we're spending a ton of time building this beautiful palace and the gardens and everything, we'll actually have that in game. And we have featured actually quite a lot of content which will be shipped in the game in that same location. Friday afternoon, we kind of got the call from Montreal to say, okay, we've cleared our schedules, why don't you and Natai come over? We're going to sit down, go through the entire E3 strategy and figure out how to get our two demos to complement each other, but as well as get your demo down to this 5-minute window. So we flew out Monday morning, spent 2 days in Montreal. We scrubbed through everything at a super detailed level, and we found some really, really great solutions.
Things can be tweaked. Sometimes additional hard decisions need to be made, but usually the game is pretty much locked. I mean, we know what we're building, we know why we're doing it, we know why we want to show publicly, and then it's a matter of just finishing and then polishing the rest until we feel satisfied with the overall product. And, you know, we're proud to release it.
I wish everything was locked. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we've been working on it for a long time, and that's one of the reasons I think we're going to see a lot of quality in AC Unity, but it's not finished.
Everyone on the team now is super excited that we have a demo, and no one's frustrated that, you know, we're trying different things that we know may not go into the full game, because we're already seeing the learning. We're already seeing how every time we iterate, we get better, we get faster.
We're going to work on it until the game ships. And I think you're going to see something at E3 that's going to be amazing, but the final game is going to be even more amazing.
For AC, we decided to invest a lot in mining. One of the main subjects that we attacked is GI, global illumination, which also includes sky occlusion. So we're looking at the sky dome, and we're baking occlusion at the high precision level, much more precise than it used to be in previous games.
So the world looks completely next gen. I mean, we were never even close to achieving this in any other AC game. Plus, we do it in an open world of that size with seamless interiors with no loading anytime.
Something really next gen, because we knew we had a couple of years ahead of us, so we tackled the technology to begin with.
So we looked at all kinds of ways to make sure that we could deliver that massive amount of detail and to get a really rich experience. So we looked at how we build the cities, we looked at how we animate our characters, how the programmers deal with a huge code base. And we made major improvements in all of those areas.
The fun part is using the power in the right way and trying to not only increase the numbers, but how much you can overhaul the experience, how much you can refresh it. how can we take the core values of Assassin's Creed, now that we have all this power, what can we improve beyond just adding more of everything?
So obviously next gen, I mean, you have the chance to really do a totally new pass at graphic and have that wow moment. And I really think that we're at that point with AC Unity.
The look of Assassin's Creed is about something that we want to make it look real and believable, and at the same time bring some personality to it. So we don't want to do something that's as real as a touristic photo, but more something close to a movie where it has this very believable and realistic signature, but at the same time has some persona, some style, some uniqueness to it.
Like for the environment, we had amazing open world. It looked really great in the sunshine, but in the shadow it was kind of flat, it lacked contrast. And we looked at physically based rendering that tries to mimic our environment and how light really works in the world. And we brought that, and we have enough power now to bring that to the consoles.
So for ACU, we decided to invest a lot in lighting. One of the main subjects that we attacked is GI, global illumination, which also includes sky occlusion. GI is basically light bouncing all over the place, mostly from the directional light, which is the sun, but also from local lights. So if I bring up the cloud, this is all, well, I'm showing you as a step-by-step process, but it's fully dynamic in game. It adapts and it works with rain. It will bring weather dynamically, and it will also affect the ground level. So the more sky coverage I get, the more shadowing I get from the sky, but less lighting bounce also, less sun bounce. So it affects the GI, it affects everything. Everything is related. It's unified.
In terms of the atmosphere, it's reflected through a very moody and atmospheric ambience. So you see smoke, you see dust, you see fog, mist. So this helps to fit with the context of the French Revolution, the urban context, but also helps to give it some very unique look.
On the weather side, we basically took everything that was done on previous ACs, which were quite amazing, and we pushed it up a notch. Like you have now materials that become weather, and you see puddles forming. It's really amazing visuals there.
We feel that we're finally closing in the gap on the movie industry, the cinema look and feel. We have these controls for the lenses, for the depth of field, for the different, like I said, lighting, VFX.
So the world looks completely next gen. I mean, we were never even close to achieving this in any other AC game. Plus, we do it in an open world of that size with seamless interiors with no loading anytime, right? So that was the first breakthrough.
Not only are we just once again building an entire setting from the ground up, but now we're going back to the urban settings. It's Paris during the 18th century. Paris was already a big place. It's the largest city we've ever recreated.
Just to give you a sense of scale, Paris is about the size of the entire frontier in AC3, but it's highly densely populated urban area.
Traditionally, level designers actually place each house by hand, one after the other. And I mean, to do this on the scale, on a semi-real scale of Paris is just insane. It wouldn't scale at all.
So we built a tool called Paripaté to procedurally generate the streets of Paris and all the different districts.
The house block generator permits the city designers to do quicker layouts than previously. Before, it was something that was very tedious and hard to change. And now the tool permits more flexibility. So we have a tool, and we can draw a sort of street shape. And on this shape, we can assign a theme. And within this theme, you'll have all the houses contained for a specific district. So the houses are cyclable, the roofs are cyclable. So you can see that with Paris Pâté or the house block generator, you can see that it's easy for the city designer to say, okay, I'm having trouble running along this roof, so I can lower the roof to make the parkour easier.
So we created Lego blocks for the different type of neighborhoods that we have, a more rich, a more cultural, poor neighborhood. And this tool populates the streets with all of these Lego blocks to create a unique Paris that we'll be able to navigate and go through as Arno in the main story.
And this basically allowed the level designers to get the city up and running really quickly at a really high quality level that we only usually get at the end of the project. So we were able to get a sense of the city really quickly. But we didn't stop at the environments. I mean, we looked at the characters. We looked at everything from hair, cloth, eyes, skin, character performance. And we did a lot of work on scanning actors and getting a lot of detail, getting emotions, and getting interesting animation rigs from actors. Because, I mean, just having the world being photorealistic is nice, but we have to populate it, and that's where it really comes alive.
We made a couple of improvements on character rendering and quality, making sure that it looks more realistic and believable. So the skin, the eyes, the hair, and as well as to make sure that everything is still easy to create and is flexible. So if you look at this guy here, without skin shader, you'll notice that he looks a lot like a rock. You can see that it's very grayish, doesn't look alive. But with skin shader, you see that there's blood running through. You can also sense the detail in the pores. So that's one of the things that we did to make sure that the characters look more alive and believable. The other thing we made sure that would look realistic and believable is the cloth itself. And so every artist are basically fashion designers. They create the pattern that you see here, and then a physics simulation is applied, so you can really sense the weight of every fold, and once it's integrated into engine, it looks like this.
The more realistic we make characters, the more pressure it puts on animation, because a realistic character that moves in a optimized animation type of way looks like a zombie.
This is just a preview of what we do with our rigs and what we get for facial animation for cinematics. This is our engine right here, and this is Motion Builder, which is where we tweak all facial animation curves. And all this is actually real time. So at any frame, you could see that we could actually change the mouth corners, actual little things if we want on the face. You see that we do have a lot of control over every part of the face, just to make sure we get all the expressions that we need.
So the quality of the character, the main character, especially in AC, is driven by programmers traditionally and animators that work together. But they work really in separate worlds. The animators, like, they basically work the animation and stuff, but they were very dependent on the programmers to integrate the animations. Basically, you had a programmer that had to enter a line of code before the animator could see what he was doing.
Kino is a node-based behavior tool that was developed for Assassin's Creed Unity to help us with rapid prototyping animations. It allows animators to not only build animations, but to also implement them and integrate them into the game themselves. Our animators are able to both develop the animation, and because they are able to put them into the game themselves, they know how the behaviors and the flow work in the game, and they're much more efficient because of it.
So we put a lot of effort into not only into animation variety, so the actual quality, but then the variety of animation, and then the AI. It puts a lot of pressure on AI. What are these people doing?
So what we're trying to do with the crowds this time on Assassin's Creed Unity is, one, we want to have a lot more crowds than we've ever had on any of our previous games. So right now, for example, in our Paris map, we have over 30,000 crowd characters that are loaded just in that one map.
We need to have enough people with believable animations, believable life. They have to have a meaning in the city. They just can't be bystanders anymore.
So we really want all of our crowds to be aware of their surroundings, about what the player just did, about what the other NPCs are doing in the game. So really a big focus on interaction. So you'll see characters that see each other in the street, they wave to each other, they'll stop. There's 20 to 30 different variations of these. Sometimes it's women stopping other women, gossiping in the street. Sometimes it's couples that see each other. Like over here, you see a romantic interaction that's going on. Here, if I take this guy also as an example, we have our new mood system. So here you'll see he's in a neutral mood pose, but change his mood at any point. Here he's confused, curious. What this means is not only just for our static crowds, but for our moving crowds as well. We could set a certain percentage of people based off of the mission, of how many people are happy, how many people are stressed, how many people are angry.
So by having this possibility for the crowd, having so many people, we're able to have these conflicts within the streets, to have massive amount of people fill up these key places like in front of Notre Dame and addressing the situation and addressing, being able to revolt. And it's the first time that we'll have the assassin walk through this.
So now you have lots of NPCs, but you can actually go within those crowds and interact. It changes the experience, and I think it's dope. When you put all of those pieces together, it's going to really just be amazing.
It is time for the marquee to
So we get about 10 times more animation, 10 times more polygons, 10 times the size of the number of pixels in our textures. So we had to think about how we deal with that amount of data without basically having our own engine, the whole engine crumble.
What's really hard is that we're working on a 24-hour cycle. There's always someone programming something or checking stuff, so making sure that it's hard to make sure that we're not breaking the other people's work because we've checked in something at 4 in the morning.
We've worked really, really hard to make sure that the flow from getting your data okay in the editor to the console and to even our partners in Bucharest, for example, in the studios all over the world is really, really short. So now cooking the data is much, much shorter. We're within 5 minutes of generating the full city with 10 times more data that we had for next gen.
What I want to succeed at with ACU is making sure that not only we have the best graphics, but that we have a systemic game and that we have an AC that really feels, looks and feels like a refreshed experience. I want people to go crazy all over again with being an assassin and playing that fantasy, and hopefully with friends. And that's the big takeaways that I want people to have from ACU.
Because of a tragic event in his life, Arno is essentially raised by a Templar Grand Master.
Working in the Assassin-Templar conflict into the revolution, that's actually pretty challenging. In the French Revolution, it's like, well, whose side do you want to be on? There's kind of the crazy people who want to chop everybody's heads off, and then there's the slightly less crazy people who want to chop most people's heads off.
You get a real good exposition of both the Assassins and the Templars and how both of these factions at one point could have prevented a lot of the bad things that happened in the French Revolution if they had just joined together. But because of these ideals, this fanaticism, it actually keeps them spread apart, and it actually doesn't help the people.
Napoleon? You certainly don't look like a blood-crazed revolutionary. The hood is a bit sinister, though, if you don't mind my saying.
It's no secret that we have a list of the most interesting pivotal moments in history, and if we could, we would do them all. But one thing's for sure, at least in my book, is that AC is about being an assassin, it's about the fantasy of being there and stalking your prey and being smarter than your enemies.
Early on in the project, we decided to make a game that was about a character and not about the French Revolution. And then the story really becomes a story about the dangers of believing blindly in one cause, be it one or the other, right? And you get a real good exposition of both the Assassins and the Templars and how both of these factions at one point could have prevented a lot of the bad things that happened in the French Revolution if they had just joined together. But because of these ideals, this fanaticism, it actually keeps them spread apart and it actually doesn't help the people. Our new assassin his motivation is one of redemption, first of all. Because of a tragic event in his life, Arno is essentially raised by a Templar, Templar Grand Master. And he actually befriends the Templar's daughter, Elise. They grow up together. That man, François de la Serre, gets murdered. And essentially, Arno feels responsible for the murder of de la Serre. Arno decides to embark on a quest to stop whoever murdered de la Serre.
Yes, we're coming back to the Assassin versus Templar storyline. It's there, it's in the background, but we're reintroducing it. We've purposely, prevented ourselves from delivering too much or overexposing too much of that storyline. And we want to bring back a little bit of the mystery of it.
The years our game pretty much covers is 1789 through 1795 about, which is when the main French Revolution happens. I mean, there were things leading up, but the fall of the Bastille is generally considered like, okay, that's the seminal moment where the people are really asserting themselves. Our game starts a little bit before that because there were some important things that happened before that, but that kind of really starts all the action going.
The country was ruled by the monarchy. The monarchy, they knew how to spend money, they didn't know how to make money, so the country was essentially broke. People were dying of hunger, people were sick, Paris was in squalor, and people at one point decided to overthrow this corrupt monarchy. A tipping point was reached where people essentially took up arms and eradicated the monarchy. They killed people, they were beheading people, not only monarchs, not only the monarchy, but even themselves. They lost control.
In the French Revolution, it's like, well, whose side do you want to be on? There's kind of the crazy people who want to chop everybody's heads off, and then there's the slightly less crazy people who want to chop most people's heads off. The story we've come up with is the Assassins and the Templars themselves are going through kind of evolutions, and they themselves are trying to figure out the direction where they want their organizations to go. And there's a disagreement within both of those camps, and that's playing out in the middle of this maelstrom of a revolution where they've got to lend their support here or there as they think is going to advance their own interests. On top of that, you have Arno and his personal story. He is also going through a character development and having to work that in with the backdrop of all these giant events swirling about him.
Turns out that there was sort of internal strife, a civil war within the Templars, and whoever took control of the Templars has decided to do so by killing the Grand Master and shifting gears and turning the Templars in a new direction that might be dangerous for the world. So this is the sort of quest Arno embarks on, and as he's sort of investigating this and discovering who was implicated, he starts finding different targets, different Templar targets, going up and up in the chain until he discovers who this murky sort of new Grand Master is.
To your health, gentlemen. You boy, stop!
So having this rich, dense urban setting is the perfect environment to play out that fantasy. And also because we took a break from it, I think it's kind of cool to reintroduce it using like the modern technologies and next-gen graphical power, and also being able to have even more crowds, more people, more interactions with the characters. I think people are going to be happily surprised to be going back to that kind of fantasy.
First, we did a lot of research on the paintings of the era, because it depicts in a good way, in a very descriptive way and personal way, what the era was about. what's the fashion of the era, the architectural style, what's the type of characters that lived during this period. Then after that we went deeply into the written descriptions, whether it's through historical writings or some stories that will be written for the era, historical stories.
With the city of Paris, we had a great opportunity because as we researched it, there's just so many personalities and events, and just there's no way we could get all of that in the main story, but this way, every single little open world activity you do has some hook into actual historical events.
You have a lot of different factions. You have sort of royalists at the beginning, revolutionaries, then you have moderates, extremists, and to us that gives us the idea, what if you could actually manipulate those factions? What if you could actually use those different factions as gameplay elements? And we've actually integrated a lot of those systems directly into the game. So essentially, there's stuff you can do in the city that helps change, and district by district, it helps change the actual fabric of the city, the actual, not the layout, but the sort of the NPC ecosystems in these different areas. And that literally changes the way you can play the missions that are set in that district.
One thing we've done is we've divided the city into kind of themes. So different neighborhoods will have different thematic resonances to the sorts of missions that you can choose to go on.
To create variety into the city, we relied a lot on stylization and exaggeration. So we read about the different districts of the real Paris and tried to gather as much info about what could be unique about this district. And we took this theme or flavor and exaggerated a little bit.
What's interesting about Paris is a vast, flat terrain, and it's broken by huge, massive monuments. So we have these majestic locations and landmarks all over the place. So you have the tall and the shorter buildings. You have a lot of interesting shapes. But also there's a lot of duality even within the social structure, and that's something that fascinates me about this time period, is if you were ultra rich or if you were really poor, there's more of a visual distinction between that.
And each of these different districts is sort of a little city on its own, right? It has, not only does it have its own architectural style, it has its own thematics, its own characters, its own types of missions, its own flavor, its own sound, everything. Even down to the types of songs that are sung in taverns. It's unique to the district. And then we actually added voice. Our NPCs just mimed, they didn't talk. Now some of them are actually going to get to talk and hear conversations. And which is really cool because when for example, you're doing a mission, you're stealthing, you can actually overhear guards, and the stuff that they're going to be talking about is stuff that's related to the mission, or maybe they're just their daily lives. It really gives a lot of realism to the game, right? It just feels more realistic. It feels more like a real city and not a big simulation. Unity, for the first time, we have full-scale buildings. So Notre Dame, the cathedral, it's actually real size. It's huge. It really changes everything.
To create Notre Dame, it's taken me in totally 14 months. I take 10 months for the outside, 4 months for the inside. It was to create more than 369 unique modules to create the entire Notre Dame. That's the time I take for this. Yeah, it includes all the research, the composition, and debugging to adapt the matrix for the behavior and stuff like this.
What was overwhelming for me was seeing statues and all the craftsmanship that went into building this architecture. So for us building this, it's a very exciting thing to work on because as artists, we're all about details. We're all about, playing with scale, and it's the perfect vernacular to work within. And for us, it sets our own challenges as artists to really express this and make it as immersive and as possible for anyone.
It's a living city with all kinds of, people that were secondary in the revolution, but they're still very, very interesting. So little tidbits of like, oh, this is how that worked, this is who that was.
It's cool when it's murky events because you can, we have our own interpretation, but if the events are too well documented, then essentially it's a checklist, right? Oh, then, you have to do this, you can't do that because historically that's not what happened. So we decided to just keep it in as a backdrop. But throughout that narrative, Arno also learns a lot of different lessons, right?
Our tagline is "History is our playground." One of our core values is having fun with history, being as true as possible to it, and have it be an inspiration for us and for people ultimately.
A lot of times reality is a little underwhelming. If you help it a little, and this is the magic of of video games, right? You can actually give it a little bit of a twist to make it feel more, if there is a message, you can make that message feel more real by twisting it and giving it a little bit of an artistic flourish.
It's a way for us to play with very interesting and pivotal moments in human history, and fusing that with the core fantasy of being an assassin and the Assassin Brotherhood. That's what AC is all about. It's playing with history.
Stealth was always one of our core pillars. You have navigation, you have fight, and you have social stealth, right? What we've done now is we've really tried to revamp the stealth pillar to make it, first of all, more immersive, second of all, give you more control, and make it more accessible.
You have a target, you have an objective in the game, and around that we are building opportunities. And all the opportunities are tailored for each play style you can have. So of course, if you are specialized in combat and you want to go in stealth, you can try. If you are good, you can pass, but it will be more difficult.
How can we take the core values of Assassin's Creed, now that we have all this power, what can we improve beyond just adding more of everything? Sometimes it's just keeping what we had before because it worked well and just improving it a little bit. Sometimes it's scratching everything and redoing it from scratch. And on AC, we've done both.
So the idea is that no longer are we focusing on single unique blocks of gameplay. We are giving you a broader goal and then giving you multiple blocks to achieve it. And we're trying to reduce failure. Second of all, it's what exactly is a cooperative experience in Assassin's Creed?
It's not a reboot, but it is a refresh, I'd like to say. And so it's taking each features and asking ourselves the question, so what's going to make it fresh? Why would players have fun again, using that feature, and make sure that they feel as if it's the first time all over again?
Navigation, you have fight, and you have social stealth, right? We wanted to have missions that you could tackle in any direction, in any way. So there's two concrete things we did for that. First of all, we developed something we call AMM. It's called Adaptive Mission Mechanics. So instead of telling you, tail this dude, we're going to tell you, find out where the secret base is. Number two, we created what we call internally black box missions. And black box missions are essentially, they don't need to be an interior. It could be just a portion of the city. But a black box mission essentially is a mission where you have a very precise goal. For example, assassinate a target. But to do so, you have literally dozens of approaches possible.
You're not designing one path. You're not designing a golden path. You're designing every possible approach opportunity. So when you build a space in Assassin's Creed, you think of it as an area, and you think of every different approach as having a different focus. So you could have a front entrance that's really easy to see, but it's full of guards. If you want to go in that way, it's either combat, maybe you can cause a distraction and sneak through, but it's a very designed and something that the designer has figured out. But we know that players won't necessarily do that. They're also going to go around the perimeter and look for other opportunities.
What we did with the navigation is create a system that allows beginners to very advanced players to have fun with the navigation. So the idea is to, the RT natural type of navigation. What we add is the possibility to use RTA and RTB. RTA means that you're going to go up directly and smoothly and very seamless, in a very seamless way. And RTB is the reverse. You're going to be done. It's what we call the control descent.
We don't have to design paths because the navigation system allows you to go wherever you want. It's incredibly flexible. And the new advanced navigation system has better animations and better precision than we've ever had before. So in the past, maybe sometimes you felt like the assassin wasn't doing exactly what you wanted. That's not an issue anymore.
So we want the character to be fast and fluid and to climb and to be able to jump from rooftop to rooftop. But then when you try to do stealth, you need the opposite. You need something more, with more granularity, more control. We've changed the controls to give you a stealth button. Second of all, we revamped all of the detection, the way that enemies perceive you and they see you. So if you're in high profile mode or if you're in stealth mode, your detection rate is different. So you make more noise or less noise, right?
We have what we call an LKP system, which is a last known position system. So you really can play with the kind of hide and seek system with the AI. So we have vanish tools like the traditional smoke bomb, which will break the line of sight of the NPC. Then you can hide behind a cover, for example, and observe what the AI are doing.
They are actually seeing you. Like if you're hidden, their eyes are actually emitting a sort of a detection cone, and they're either seeing you or not. If they see something, they will come and investigate, but they don't know where you are. They've seen something there, so if you hide, you can actually spy on them, looking through your last known position and looking for you. So that adds another, because you can actually game the guards and send them on wild goose chases and then cover back on another path or whatever.
We have a robust cover system where you can take cover anywhere in the environment, and you can now have that layer of really having the fantasy of being an assassin and sneaking through and not being spotted, which wouldn't have been possible before, which is thanks to our new stealth mechanics, but also the seamless interiors.
When you enter a map, you can just observe what are your options, where you can go. If your target is inside the building, just look at the windows, what windows are open or not, and it's up to you to make your own path, in fact. And you can seamlessly enter, exit, the way you want.
So what happens is, when you're trying to create a stealth game, and the path of least resistance is combat, well, the thing about stealth is, stealth wants to find you. So once you are detected, if you don't give real opportunity for the player to regain control and hide, his only real option is fight. So then you need to make fight accessible, or else players get frustrated because they die.
We've reimagined the combat pillar altogether as well, introduced a little bit of some fencing animation, just make it fit the time period and stuff like that, but also we've reimagined all the AI behaviors, all the fight positioning, the way that the NPCs position themselves strategically and how much they fight.
So you cannot be anymore surrounded by, let's say, 15, 20 opponents. It's not possible anymore. The limit is between 3-4 guards around you. Starting at 4th, they will probably shoot at you and don't go directly on the mini fight.
Arno is a very precise character. He's a very sharp character, and that sharpness you can tell in his humor, in his personality, but also in his movement. Like the assassins, like Ezio, for example, was much more of he had a lot of flourishes in the way he fought and the way he moved. Arno is much more, think of Kung Fu versus Krav Maga. Arno is much more Krav Maga, he's much more direct, to the point, very brutal assassin.
So we want players to, do that vanish loop where they fight some guard. If they feel like they won't win that one, then they can easily, vanish from the enemies and then come back, so that players feel a bit smarter using their tools.
By doing that, it puts a lot less pressure on fight, because now you have other means of retaining control, which means we can make fight more challenging, which feeds back into the whole co-op thing where it is challenging. If you go running around into a group of guards by yourself, you're gonna get killed.
If you get into a fight, you'll kill a few guys, but then you'll quickly get overrun. You either need to take off or you need to get your friends, and that brings people together.
No one wants to be the guys that's following, or everyone wants to be the leader. So they each have to have clear objectives, clear goals. It meant for us to opening up the game even more, adding even more options, more paths to choose, more features to differentiate between players.
So instead of giving all the full power at the beginning to the player, we decided to go more like a kind of a RPG system. So you have for the first time in the game, you have a very deep progression system. A few examples is we have two axes of progression for the player. One is the skill and one is the equipment. The skill basically is through your progression. You will gather some skill points, and you can use skill points to unlock skills. Skills are basically new moves, cool moves. You can have moves in navigation, in fight, in stealth. And so you can you can build your own character. It's still the same character, it's the main character of the game, but you are allowed to build it the way you want. It's visually different, so you can select your colors, you can create your own avatar. What is more interesting is we have parameters on the equipment. So let's say you have a coat, a very heavy leather coat. It will maybe help you to increase your resistance to damages. But on the other side, you will generate more sound around you, so people will look at you, and it will be maybe more difficult to blend in the crowd.
So we didn't want to create classes or specific roles. We really push for different types of possibilities in terms of cooperations. First one being the synchronization. So you have several things to do at the same moment. Sync kill is really the best example. So you have several guards four guards to kill, your 4 players. Just kill them at the same moment.
If 2 players find themselves close to one another, you get a sort of a soft tethering, and you get additional effects. So if I perform a disguise and you're within a certain radius, you will also get the disguise. Rewards are shared. If I loot a chest and you're nearby, you're going to get the reward also. Stuff like that. These are things that will actually reward you for playing co-op. Then we have things that will punish you if you don't, like large groups of guards.
The way the missions are designed is you have a target, you have an objective in the game, and around that we are building opportunities. And all the opportunities are tailored for each play style you can have. So of course, if you are specialized in combat and you want to go in stealth, you can try. If you are good, you can pass, but it will be more difficult.
Not only do we not switch off those systemic things during missions, we actually give players more tools to manipulate them. It's not that we didn't want to do this before. This is a hard problem to fix, and we've had a lot of time to do it. But the idea earlier, I was talking to you about really tackling the core pillars of the brand and really trying to change that core pillar of Assassin's Creed. This is part of it, right?
We've always known that the Assassins have this brotherhood, that they're not alone, but the gameplay has always been solo. So I think it's a natural fit to bring people together to have this co-op experience. When you play co-op missions in Assassin's Creed Unity, you can play solo. We're not going to say you can't. So someone who wants to play on their own can play all of the content. But the co-op content is really designed to be experienced together with your friends. That's actually why it's called Assassin's Creed Unity.
I just want people to feel that ACU is a great experience. It's and one of the best Assassin's Creed. I want them to feel like they're reliving the fun of AC1 all over again, rediscovering the brand, and just being reintroduced to the story, to the background, to the myth, the mystery of that franchise, and make sure that we just hit all the right notes.